Ryan never imagined that suspicion could slowly destroy a marriage. For almost 8 years, he and his wife, Emily, had shared what everyone believed was a perfect life. They owned a beautiful suburban home, drove nice cars, and constantly posted smiling photos online. Friends admired them, neighbors envied them, and even their families believed they were the definition of a happy couple. But behind closed doors, things had changed. Over the last few months, Emily had become distant. She spent more time on her phone than talking to Ryan. Whenever he entered the room, she quickly locked her screen or turned it face down. Her excuses for coming home late became more frequent. Sometimes it was shopping, other times it was meeting an old friend or working overtime. At first, Ryan ignored the warning signs. He convinced himself that every marriage goes through difficult phases. He blamed stress, work, and life itself. He trusted Emily completely and didn't want to become the jealous husband who questioned every little thing. But then strange details began to add up. The mileage on Emily's car was much higher than it should have been. Gas disappeared far quicker than expected. Restaurant charges appeared on their shared credit card, yet Emily claimed she had eaten alone. There were perfume scents inside the car that Ryan had never bought for her. One evening, while cleaning the garage, Ryan noticed fresh dirt on the passenger-side floor mat of Emily's car. Emily had told him she spent the afternoon at a luxury shopping mall where every parking area was fully paved. Something wasn't adding up. That night, Ryan couldn't sleep. He lay awake replaying every strange moment from the past several months. Every excuse. Every late-night message. Every cancelled dinner. Every cold conversation. By sunrise, he had made a decision. He wouldn't accuse Emily without proof. Instead, he wanted the truth. The next afternoon, while Emily was visiting her sister, Ryan Etley took her car to a trusted electronics technician. He purchased a tiny hidden dash camera capable of recording continuously whenever the engine started. The device blended perfectly into the vehicle's interior, making it almost impossible to notice. He wasn't proud of what he was doing. In fact, he hated himself for reaching this point. But he also knew that living with constant doubt was worse than facing the truth, whatever it might be. After the camera was carefully installed, Ryan drove the car home and parked it exactly where Emily had left it. Nothing looked different. Nothing seemed unusual. Emily returned later that evening, smiled warmly, kissed Ryan on the cheek, and thanked him for washing her car. Ryan forced himself to smile back. She had no idea that every future drive could now reveal secrets she believed would remain hidden forever. As Emily drove away the next morning, Ryan watched the car disappear around the corner. He wasn't hoping to catch her doing something wrong. He was hoping the camera would prove he had been worrying for nothing. But deep inside, a quiet voice told him that the hardest chapter of his life was only beginning. Ryan spent the entire day pretending everything was normal. He went to work, answered emails, attended meetings, and smiled at coworkers whenever they spoke to him. But his mind wasn't in the office. Every few minutes, he glanced at his phone, wondering where Emily was and what the hidden camera might be recording. When he finally arrived home that evening, Emily was already there. She greeted him with a warm smile, asked about his day, and served dinner as if nothing had changed. Ryan carefully watched every expression on her face, searching for guilt, but she looked completely calm. That made him even more uneasy. Later that night, after Emily fell asleep, Ryan quietly walked into his home office. His hands trembled as he removed the memory card from the hidden camera's receiver and inserted it into his laptop. A folder appeared on the screen. There were several video files from that day's drives. Ryan took a deep breath and clicked on the first recording. The footage began with Emily leaving the driveway. She was alone. She sang along to the radio, adjusted the mirrors, and drove toward the city. Everything seemed ordinary. Ryan felt a wave of relief. Maybe he had been wrong. The second video showed her stopping at a coffee shop. She ordered a drink, checked her phone several times, and smiled while reading a message. A few seconds later, she typed a reply. Ryan couldn't see the phone's screen, but her expression suggested she was excited about something. Still, there was nothing suspicious. The next recording showed Emily parked outside a shopping center. Instead of getting out immediately, she fixed her makeup in the mirror, sprayed perfume, and smiled at herself before stepping out of the car. Ryan frowned. She had never spent that much time getting ready just to shop. Nearly an hour later, she returned carrying only one small shopping bag. The trip had lasted much longer than the purchase seemed to justify. Ryan continued watching. The final recording of the day showed Emily taking a route that wasn't on the way home. She drove through unfamiliar streets before stopping near a quiet neighborhood park. Ryan leaned closer to the screen. Emily looked around carefully through the windows, almost as if she was checking whether anyone had noticed her. Then, the passenger door opened. Someone got into the car. The camera only captured part of the person's body, a man's arm, a dark jacket, and a wristwatch, but his face remained outside the camera's angle. Ryan's heartbeat pounded in his ears. The man laughed at something Emily said. She laughed too. They spoke casually, as though they knew each other well. Ryan turned the volume up, hoping to hear the conversation, but passing traffic and the car's engine drowned out most of their words. After only a few minutes, the man stepped out again, and Emily drove away. Ryan stared silently at the frozen frame. He still didn't have proof of an affair. But he now knew one thing for certain. Emily had lied. She had never mentioned meeting any man that day. Ryan closed the laptop slowly. He wasn't angry anymore. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't crying. Instead, a cold determination settled over him. He realized that one day's recording wasn't enough. If there was a hidden truth, it would eventually reveal itself. So instead of confronting Emily, Ryan made a decision. He would keep recording. He would stay patient. And when the full truth finally surfaced, he would make sure everyone involved remembered the consequences. Ryan didn't check the recordings every day anymore. Instead, he let the footage accumulate for an entire week. He believed that if Emily was hiding something, a longer timeline would reveal patterns that a single day never could. Waiting was difficult, but he knew patience often uncovered what emotions could not. Late Saturday night, after Emily had gone to bed, Ryan sat alone in his office with a cup of cold coffee beside his laptop. One by one, he opened the new video files. The first 2 days looked ordinary. Emily drove to work, visited grocery stores, and met a few friends whose names Ryan recognized. Nothing stood out. Ryan almost convinced himself that the strange meeting near the park had been innocent. Then he opened Wednesday's recording. Emily drove to a cafe on the edge of town instead of taking her usual route home. She parked in a corner where fewer cars were around. A few minutes later, the same man entered the passenger seat. This time, the camera captured his face clearly. Ryan had never seen him before. He appeared to be around Emily's age, wearing business casual CL aughts and carrying a laptop bag. The two greeted each other with comfortable familiarity. They laughed. They talked for nearly 20 minutes. The audio was still imperfect because of traffic noise, but a few words could be heard. He still doesn't know. Don't worry. Next weekend. Ryan paused the video. His stomach tightened. The conversation alone didn't prove anything, but Emily had once again told Ryan she had been working late that evening. The lie hurt more than the footage itself. Ryan continued watching. Another recording showed the pair driving together across town before stopping outside a quiet apartment complex. The camera remained inside the car, so it couldn't record where they went after getting out. Nearly 2 hours later, they returned. They looked relaxed, smiling and joking as they climbed back into the vehicle. Ryan leaned back in his chair. His hands were completely still. No shouting. No tears. Only silence. By Friday, the pattern had become impossible to ignore. Emily and the same man met repeatedly. Different locations. Different excuses. The same secret. Ryan closed the laptop and stared out the window into the darkness. For several minutes, he said nothing. He realized that confronting Emily immediately would only lead to arguments and denials. If he accused her now, she could claim the meetings were innocent, invent explanations, or say Ryan was misunderstanding what he had seen. He wanted the complete truth before making any decision. The following morning, Emily smiled across the breakfast table. "So," she said cheerfully, "I'm meeting a few coworkers this afternoon. I might be home a little late." Ryan looked into her eyes. "Okay," he replied calmly. "Drive safely." She smiled, picked up her keys, and left. As the garage door closed behind her car, Ryan stood quietly in the kitchen. He wasn't planning revenge anymore. Not yet. First, he wanted every piece of the puzzle. Because when the truth finally came to light, he intended to make his decisions based on facts, not anger. Ryan spent the next several days acting exactly as he always had. He smiled when Emily smiled. He asked about her day. He made dinner with her, watched television in the evenings, and even joked about planning a weekend getaway. Emily seemed completely convinced that her secret was safe. Meanwhile, Ryan continued reviewing the hidden camera footage every night. The recordings painted a clear picture. Emily and the same man met regularly. They often parked in quiet locations before driving somewhere else together. Their conversations were friendly and familiar, and although many words were drowned out by road noise, one thing became obvious: they had been keeping these meetings hidden from Ryan. By the end of the second week, Ryan no longer had doubts. He had enough evidence to know that Emily had repeatedly lied about where she had been and who she had been meeting. Still, he refused to let anger control him. He knew that if he confronted her in the heat of the moment, everything would end in shouting and accusations. Instead, he wanted the truth to speak for itself. One evening, Ryan created a private folder on his computer. He carefully organized the recordings by date and time. He wrote notes beside each video, matching them with Emily's explanations. Working late. The recording showed her meeting the man. Shopping with friends. The recording showed her driving across town to another location. Office meeting. The footage placed her somewhere completely different. The pattern was impossible to ignore. Ryan wasn't collecting evidence out of revenge anymore. He wanted clarity. He wanted to know exactly how long the deception had been going on before making any life-changing decisions. The following Friday, Emily casually mentioned that she had an important business dinner and would probably return home after 10 p.m. Ryan smiled. "No problem," he said. "Take your time." As soon as she drove away, Ryan opened the tracking app connected to the hidden camera. He watched the car move across the city. Instead of heading toward the business district, it stopped in the parking lot of a quiet riverside restaurant. A few minutes later, the familiar man arrived in another vehicle. The hidden camera captured him getting into Emily's car. They remained parked for several minutes, laughing and talking before walking into the restaurant together. Ryan quietly closed the app. He didn't drive there. He didn't interrupt them. He didn't call Emily. Instead, he made another decision. He would wait until every question had an answer. Only then would he confront her, with calm, undeniable facts rather than anger. For the first time in weeks, Ryan felt completely certain about his next step. The hidden camera had already revealed enough to change his life forever. Now, it was only a matter of choosing the right moment to reveal the truth. Ryan decided the time for waiting was over. For nearly 3 weeks, he had quietly reviewed the hidden camera recordings, comparing every trip with Emily's explanations. The pattern was undeniable. She had repeatedly lied about where she had been and whom she had met. Still, Ryan wanted one final chance to hear the truth from her directly. On Sunday evening, he invited Emily to sit with him in the living room. She smiled, unaware that anything was wrong. "What's going on?" she asked. "You look serious." Ryan took a slow breath. "I just want to ask you something." "Of course." "Where were you last Friday night?" Emily answered immediately. Business dinner with my coworkers. And nodded. And Wednesday. I told you. I worked late. What about the afternoon before that? I went shopping. Every answer came as smoothly as the last. Ryan quietly opened his laptop and placed it on the coffee table. Emily frowned. What's that? Without saying a word, Ryan pressed play. The first video showed Emily driving to the Riverside parking lot. A few moments later, the same man entered the passenger seat. The room fell silent. Emily's smile disappeared. Ryan played another recording. Then another. Each video matched a different excuse she had given over the past several weeks. Working late. Shopping. Meeting coworkers. One by one, the recordings contradicted her words. Emily's face turned pale. She stared at the screen without speaking. Finally, she whispered, "How did you get these?" Ryan looked at her calmly. There was a hidden camera in the car. Emily covered her mouth. You recorded me? I recorded the car, Ryan replied quietly. I wanted to know why your stories never matched where you actually went. Tears formed in Emily's eyes. She realized there was no point denying the meetings. The recordings had already answered every question. For several long moments, neither of them spoke. The silence felt heavier than any argument. Finally, Emily lowered her head. I'm sorry, she whispered. Ryan closed the laptop. I gave you countless chances to tell me the truth, he said. Every time, you chose another lie. Emily reached for his hand, but Ryan gently pulled it away. I'm not shouting, he continued. I'm not here to embarrass you. I just needed the truth. He stood up and walked toward the window. Outside, the evening sky was growing dark. Behind him, Emily sat on the couch, realizing that the life they had built together had changed forever. Ryan wasn't thinking about revenge anymore. He was thinking about what came next, and how to move forward with honesty, whatever decision he ultimately made. Emily sat quietly, unable to find the right words. I made a terrible mistake, she said softly. Please, let's fix this. Ryan remained calm. For weeks, he had imagined this conversation. He thought he would be angry, raise his voice, or demand explanations. Instead, he felt something unexpected. Peace. The hidden camera had answered every question that had been keeping him awake at night. There was nothing left to wonder about. I don't need more excuses, Ryan said. I only needed the truth. Emily tried to explain that she had been unhappy for some time and had made decisions she regretted. She admitted she should have been honest instead of hiding her meetings and making up stories. Ryan listened without interrupting. When she finished, he quietly replied, the hardest part isn't what happened. It's that every time I gave you a chance to be honest, you chose another lie. Emily lowered her head. The room fell silent again. The following morning, Ryan contacted a family lawyer to understand his legal options and to learn how to handle the situation respectfully and fairly. He also informed both sets of parents that he and Emily were experiencing serious marital problems. He avoided insults or dramatic accusations. Instead, he simply said that trust had been broken and that they needed space to decide the future. A few days later, Ryan and Emily met in the lawyer's office. They discussed practical matters, the house, finances, and how to separate their lives with as little conflict as possible. It wasn't easy. Years of memories couldn't be packed into boxes overnight. As they left the office, Emily looked at Ryan. I know I've hurt you, she said. If I could go back and change my choices, I would. Ryan nodded politely. I hope you learn from this, he replied. So do I. That evening, Ryan returned to the now quiet house. He opened the drawer where the hidden camera had been stored. For a moment, he held it in his hand. It had revealed the truth, but it had also marked the end of the life he once believed he had. Ryan switched it off, placed it back in the box, and closed the drawer. He realized something important. His revenge wasn't about humiliation or public embarrassment. It was about refusing to live a lie. The greatest revenge was choosing honesty, protecting his own dignity, and moving forward with his life instead of remaining trapped in betrayal. As he looked out the window toward the setting sun, Ryan knew one chapter of his life had ended. Another was about to begin. Several weeks had passed since Ryan and Emily decided to separate. The house felt quieter than ever. The framed family photos were gone from the walls, half the closets were empty, and the dining table that once hosted countless dinners now sat untouched. For the first time in months, Ryan woke up without wondering where Emily was or whether she was telling the truth. The uncertainty was gone. Although the pain remained, so did a growing sense of freedom. Instead of dwelling on the past, Ryan focused on rebuilding his life. He returned to hobbies he had abandoned years earlier, spent more time with friends and family, and even started volunteering on weekends. Every small step reminded him that healing wasn't about forgetting, it was about moving forward. One afternoon, Ryan received a message from Emily. "I know I can't change what happened, but I truly hope one day you'll forgive me." Ryan stared at the message for several minutes before typing a simple reply. "I don't hate you. I just can't go back to the life we had. I wish you the best." He pressed send and put his phone away. There were no arguments. No insults. No attempts to reopen old wounds. For Ryan, closure didn't come from winning or making someone else suffer. It came from accepting that trust, once broken beyond repair, sometimes means it's healthier to let go. Months later, Ryan drove the same car that had once held the hidden camera. At a traffic light, he glanced at the dashboard and smiled faintly. That small device had uncovered painful truths, but it had also given him something valuable, a chance to stop living in doubt and start living honestly. As the light turned green, Ryan drove toward a future he couldn't have imagined just a few months earlier. For the first time in a long while, he wasn't looking back. He was looking ahead. A year had passed. Ryan's life looked completely different. The divorce had been finalized months earlier, and although the process had been emotionally difficult, he had managed to rebuild himself piece by piece. He had focused on his career, strengthened old friendships, and learned to enjoy the quiet moments that once felt empty. The hidden camera that had changed everything was no longer in his car. He had removed it long ago. Its purpose had ended the moment the truth came to light. One autumn afternoon, Ryan received an unexpected email from Emily. The subject line simply read, "Thank you." Curious, he opened it. Emily wrote that she had spent the past year reflecting on the choices she had made. She admitted that dishonesty had destroyed not only her marriage but also the trust of people she cared about. She explained that counseling had helped her understand the importance of honesty, accountability, and communication. At the end of the message, she wrote, "You didn't seek revenge by trying to ruin my life. You simply chose the truth. At the time, I didn't understand it, but now I do. I hope you find the happiness I couldn't give you." Ryan read the email once. Then he quietly closed his laptop. He didn't reply. Some stories don't need another conversation. Some endings speak for themselves. That evening, Ryan met a few close friends for dinner. As they laughed and shared stories, one of them asked, "So, after everything you've been through, what's the biggest lesson you learned?" Ryan smiled for a moment before answering. "I learned that trust is the foundation of every relationship. Once it's broken, rebuilding it is incredibly difficult. And I've learned that it's always better to face the truth than to live with endless doubt." His friends nodded in agreement. Driving home later that night, Ryan stopped at a red light. The city lights reflected across his windshield. For a brief moment, he remembered the day he had secretly installed the hidden camera, hoping it would prove his fears were wrong. Instead, it had revealed a painful reality. Yet that painful truth had also given him the chance to move forward with clarity, dignity, and self-respect. As the traffic light turned green, Ryan drove into the night, not carrying anger, not seeking revenge, but carrying the wisdom that honesty will always outlast deception. The end.